The palace of the alien king stood tall in the center of his world. Its towers reached into the sky, glowing with a cold silver light. Soldiers guarded every gate, and servants moved quietly through the halls, afraid to speak too loudly. The king ruled with iron hands, and his people feared both his voice and his silence. On this night, the palace was not quiet. Strange whispers filled the air. Servants rushed from one room to another, their faces pale. Something had happened in the royal chambers, something none of them had ever imagined. The princess had given birth. At first, the servants thought it was a day of joy. A new child, an heir to the throne. But when the midwives carried the baby forward, their hands trembled. Their eyes did not meet the king's. The baby's cries were soft, but the sound was unlike the cry of any pure-blood alien child. The alien king stepped closer. His shadow fell across the cradle. His eyes, sharp and glowing like burning ice, studied the tiny face. The baby's skin was not the pale silver of his people. It was soft, warm, and strange. Too human. A silence fell over the chamber. No one dared breathe. The king's jaw tightened. His voice, low and cold, broke the silence. "This is not my blood. This is not the child of my people." The princess clutched the baby to her chest, her eyes filled with fear but also with fierce love. "Father," she whispered, "this is my son. He is mine." The king turned, his cloak swirling behind him. His council of elders and generals stood waiting at the door. He raised his hand and spoke to them so all could hear. "The humans have polluted my house. They have touched what was sacred. They have broken the line of kings." Gasps echoed through the hall. Soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons. Some looked at the princess with pity, others with hatred. The king's voice grew louder, filled with rage. "This child is a curse. This child is a warning. Humans cannot be trusted. They creep into our world like thieves. They dare to steal what is royal, what is pure. And for this crime they will pay." The princess shook her head, tears falling down her cheeks. "No, he is not a curse. He is proof that peace is possible. He carries both worlds in him," but her father did not listen. His heart was filled with fire and pride. He saw not a child, but an insult, a threat to his power. In the shadows, servants whispered to each other. None knew the truth. How had the princess met a human? How had their love remained hidden in the heart of the palace? Questions swirled, but fear sealed every mouth shut. The king turned back to his daughter. His voice dropped low again, filled with danger. "This child will not live to grow, and the humans will not live to celebrate their trick." The princess held the baby tighter. Her arms trembled, but her voice did not break. "If you touch him, father, you will destroy not only me, but yourself. He is my son. I will protect him with my life." For a moment, silence returned. Only the child's soft cry broke it. The king's eyes burned as he stared at his daughter. He saw her strength. He saw her defiance. And he hated it. Finally he spoke, his tone sharp as a blade. "Then war it shall be. If humans think they can steal from me, then I will take everything from them. I will crush their cities. I will burn their skies. And I will show them the price of daring to touch what is mine." The council bowed. Soldiers shouted in agreement. The room shook with their voices. The princess closed her eyes, holding her child against her chest as if her arms alone could guard him from the storm that was about to come. Far above the palace, the night sky filled with distant thunder. But it was not thunder from nature. Alien warships stirred in their docks, preparing for the command of their king. And in that moment, the fate of two worlds began to change, all because of one forbidden child. The council chamber of the alien king was carved from black stone, older than memory. Strange fires burned in crystal lamps along the walls, casting shadows that looked alive. The king sat on his throne, his long cloak spreading around him like dark wings. His generals, priests, and advisors stood in a half-circle, waiting for his command. The king's face was hard and sharp, like the stone walls around him. His eyes glowed with cold fury. The birth of the forbidden child had reached every corner of the palace. Now it was no secret. The shame had touched the throne, and the king would not allow it. He rose slowly, and the room fell silent. Every man and woman bowed their heads, afraid to meet his gaze. His voice carried like a blade through the air. "The humans have stolen from me. They have broken into the heart of my house. They have defiled the bloodline of kings." A low murmur spread through the chamber. Generals gripped their swords. Priests touched their holy marks. Fear and anger grew together. The king lifted his hand, and silence returned. "Long have we allowed the humans to exist. We gave them no war, and still they spread like weeds. They build their cities, their armies, their machines. They are weak, but they are many, and now they dare to touch my throne. They dare to put their seed into the womb of a princess. This is not an insult. This is an act of war. He stepped down from his throne, his footsteps echoing like thunder. His generals straightened, eager to hear the command. The king's voice rose. From this day there will be no peace. From this day there will be no mercy. I declare war on the human race. The chamber shook with shouts. Generals raised their fists. Priests cried out blessings. The war had begun with his words, but not all in the room were filled with joy. Some advisors lowered their heads, hiding their unease. They had seen humans before, not as enemies but as traitors, explorers, and allies in small battles against other foes. Some believed the humans were strong in ways the aliens did not understand. To fight them would not be easy. To fight them might bring ruin. But none dared speak. To stand against the king was to choose death. The king turned to his warlord, a tall alien with armor that glowed faintly under the firelight. Gather the fleets. Arm the legions. I want every ship ready to fly within days. The skies above Earth will burn with our fire. The warlord bowed low. As you command, my king. The king's gaze then fell on the high priest, who clutched his staff tightly. Tell the people what has happened. Tell them the humans have broken our bloodline. Tell them they have attacked us in spirit, and now we will attack them in flesh. Let their hearts burn with anger. Let them hunger for war. The priest lowered his head. It shall be done, my king. The council bowed again, and the king returned to his throne. But his mind was not calm. Beneath his rage was something darker, fear. The child was small now, weak and helpless. But what if it lived? What if it grew? A child born of two worlds might become stronger than both. It could take the throne. It could lead his people away from him. He would not allow it. Meanwhile, deep inside the palace, the princess held her baby close. She had heard the news, for the walls carried whispers. Her father had declared war. Her child's birth was now the reason for bloodshed. She pressed her lips to the boy's forehead, whispering, I will keep you safe, no matter the cost. The king's wrath spread quickly through the empire. Messengers carried his words to every corner of the alien worlds. Soldiers prepared for battle. Massive ships woke from their silent docks, engines glowing like suns. Weapons were loaded, armies trained harder, and banners of war were raised. In the streets, the people shouted the king's name. They believed his words. They believed humans had betrayed them. They believed this war was holy and just. But far away, in hidden places, some whispered a different story. They whispered that the princess's child was not a curse but a miracle, that the king's anger was blind, and that this war would only bring ruin. Those whispers were quiet for fear of death, but they did not die. The king stood before his armies one last time before the fleets launched. His voice thundered across the skies, carried by speakers and broadcasts. Humans dared to steal from me. They dared to break into my house. For this crime, their world will fall. For this insult, their skies will burn. This war will not end until every human kneels or lies in ash. The soldiers roared in answer, their voices shaking the ground. The king raised his hand high, and with that signal, the fleets began to rise. Thousands of ships lifted into the night, their engines lighting the sky like a new constellation of fire. The war had begun, and in the shadows of the palace, the princess wept quietly, knowing the storm her child had brought into the world. The palace was no longer a home for the princess. It had become a cage. Guards stood at every door, their sharp eyes watching her every move. The whispers of servants followed her steps. Everywhere she walked, she felt the weight of fear pressing down on her. But in her chambers, hidden behind tall curtains and heavy walls, the princess held her child. The baby's small hands reached for her face, his cry soft but full of life. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time in many days, she smiled. Those eyes were not fully alien. They carried a spark of something different, something human. And with that spark came memory. She remembered the nights when she had escaped the palace in secret, cloaked and veiled, slipping past her father's guards. She had walked among the stars, visiting the colonies where her father's law held little weight. It was there she met him, the human soldier. He was not like the others she had seen in war councils or reports. He was young, but his eyes carried old pain. He had fought in battles, yet still spoke of peace. He had looked at her not as a princess, not as the daughter of the alien king, but as a woman. At first, their meetings were cautious, hidden in the dark. They spoke of stars, of home, of what they wished the worlds could be. She listened to his voice, rough but kind, and her heart opened in ways she never imagined. In time, their hands touched, their lips met, and love grew where it never should have. The child she now held was proof of that love. Proof that two worlds could meet without war. Proof that the king was wrong. But proof could also be danger. The princess knew if her father found the boy, he would kill him. The king's wrath was endless and his pride deeper than the ocean. Already he had declared war on the humans. Already his fleets moved through the stars, preparing to strike. If he learned the child still lived, nothing could stop him from destroying them both. The princess rocked the baby gently, whispering, "You are not a curse. You are hope. One day you will show them." But her heart was not at peace. She remembered the human soldier, her lover, her child's father. Where was he now? When she had last seen him, he had promised to return. He had said he would protect her, but he never came. Some said he had been captured by her father's spies. Others believed he had been killed before he could reach her again. The princess did not know the truth, and that uncertainty burned her more than any flame. Still, she believed in him. She believed he lived. She believed he would find his way back to her and their son. Outside her chamber walls, the sound of marching boots echoed. The king's armies were moving. The war had begun, and she was powerless to stop it. Her only power now was to protect her child. That night, she made a choice, calling her most trusted servant, a woman who had cared for her since she was young. The princess spoke in a low, urgent voice. "This child cannot stay here. My father will kill him if he discovers the truth. You must take him far from the palace, far from the king's reach." The servant's eyes widened with fear. "Princess, if I am caught, you will not be," the princess interrupted firmly. Her voice shook, but her will was strong. "You are the only one I can trust. Take him to the outer colonies. Find humans if you can. They will protect him." The servant hesitated, but when she saw the princess's tears, she nodded. "I will do as you command." The princess kissed her son one last time before handing him over. The baby's fingers curled around her own, refusing to let go. She whispered against his skin, "One day you will return. One day you will bring peace." Her heart broke as the servant disappeared into the shadows, carrying the child away. She stood alone, staring at the door, her arms empty. The silence that followed was heavy, but she told herself it was the only way to keep him alive. As dawn broke, horns sounded across the city. The fleets had left. Alien warships, vast and unstoppable, cut through the skies toward Earth. The king stood at the head of his armies, his pride high, his heart blind with rage. And the princess? She remained behind, a prisoner in her own chambers, her secret hidden but her soul restless. She could not fight her father yet. She could not stop the war, but she knew the truth her father refused to see. The child was not a curse, he was the key. And as she looked to the horizon, where the warships vanished into the dark of space, she whispered one promise to herself and to the universe. "I will find you, both of you, and I will protect what we began." The skies above the alien world thundered with power. Warships, black and vast as mountains, rose slowly from their docks. Their engines burned like suns, filling the horizon with fire. The people gathered in the streets below, cheering and shouting the king's name, their voices echoing like waves of a storm. For them, war was glory. For them, war was justice. But for Earth, war meant death. Inside the royal war chamber, the alien king stood before a great screen that showed the fleet's formation. Thousands of ships spread across the stars, each one armed with weapons that could shatter cities. The king's generals reported in loud voices, their words sharp and full of pride. "All ships armed. All legions ready. The first strike can begin at your command. My king." The king lifted his hand, silencing the room. His eyes glowed with a cruel fire. "Let the humans see the strength of true rulers. Let them watch as their world is crushed." The warlord bowed deeply. "It shall be done." The drums of war had begun. Far away on Earth, people saw strange lights in the night sky. At first they thought it was only stars, brighter than usual. But then the lights moved. They shifted, spread, and grew larger. Panic spread through cities as telescopes and satellites confirmed the truth. A fleet was coming. An alien army. Governments called emergency meetings. Soldiers filled bases. Scientists scrambled to send warnings, but no words could stop what was already moving toward them. In one hidden base, a small group of human fighters gathered. They were not politicians, not even official soldiers. They were resistance members. Veterans, engineers, rebels, people who believed that war with aliens was always possible. And in the middle of them stood a man with scars across his face, his eyes cold but steady. He was the missing soldier. The one who had once loved the princess. He had been gone, hiding from alien hunters who wanted him dead. But now, as the skies filled with danger, he returned. His voice was steady as he spoke to the others. They are coming for us. They will not stop until Earth burns. But we will not fall. We will fight, the group shouted in answer, their fists raised. Old weapons were brought out, new machines were tested, and secret plans were set into motion. Earth was weak compared to the alien empire, but humans were clever. Humans were stubborn. And when cornered, humans could become more dangerous than anyone expected. Back in the palace, the princess heard the distant roar of engines as fleets left for war. She pressed her hands against the window, watching the glowing trails vanish into the blackness of space. Her heart was heavy, for she knew her father would not stop until the earth was nothing but ash. Her servant had taken her child to safety, but safety was not forever. The king's wrath stretched across galaxies. One day he would find the boy, and when that day came, she needed to be ready. She sat alone, whispering to herself, "Please let the humans be strong. Let them survive long enough for him to return. Let my child grow." But her whispers were drowned by the sound of war horns outside the palace. Every alien soldier marched through the streets, weapons shining, armor glowing. The people threw flowers, praising the king as if he were a god. The war had already taken root in their hearts. The fleets moved fast. In the dark space between stars, alien ships cut through the void. Scouts were sent ahead, searching for Earth's defenses. Weapons were charged, their power bright enough to split moons. Every soldier on board was told the same thing. The humans are weak. The humans are liars. The humans must be erased. But not every soldier believed those words. Some had seen humans before. Some had traded with them, spoken with them, even laughed with them. In their private thoughts, they wondered if the king was wrong. Yet none dared to speak. Silence was the only way to survive in the shadow of his wrath. On Earth, the first alien ships entered orbit. Alarms screamed across cities. People ran through the streets, searching for shelter. Mothers clutched their children. Fathers shouted in fear. Governments called for calm, but no one listened. From the sky, beams of light struck down, not to destroy yet, but to warn. The aliens wanted humans to see the power that hung above them, the power that could end their world at a single command. In that moment, the human soldier, the princess's lost love, stepped forward. Standing before his group of fighters, he said, "This is not the end. This is the beginning. If they want war, we will give them war. We fight for Earth. We fight for every child, every family, every future, and we will not break." His words spread through the group like fire. They were small, but they were ready. Far above, in the command ship, the alien king watched Earth on his screen. He saw the cities, the armies, the frightened faces. He smiled, cold and cruel. "Soon," he whispered, "soon they will kneel. Soon they will learn what it means to cross me." The war drums beat louder. The fleets closed in. The first battles of a new war were about to begin, and in the shadows of both worlds, human and alien, hope and fear lived side by side, waiting to see which would rise first. The first alien strikes had torn across Earth's skies. Great beams of energy had burned through satellites and defense stations, leaving humans blind and broken in the upper atmosphere. Whole cities looked up at the glowing ships that floated like monsters above the clouds, but Earth did not kneel. Beneath the smoke and ruins, resistance was rising. Not from the armies of nations, which were scattered and confused, but from the hidden fighters who had prepared for this moment for years. Men and women who knew the aliens would come one day, people who had lost families to earlier raids, or who had studied the shadows of alien technology, waiting for a chance to fight back. They called themselves the Resistance. The human soldier, the one who had once loved the alien princess, stood at the heart of it. His name was whispered among fighters as both a myth and a leader. Scarred from battles and hunted by alien spies, he had survived when others thought him dead. Now he had returned, his voice carried across the underground bunker where his fighters gathered. The king thinks we are weak. He thinks we will break. But humans do not break. We bend, we bleed, but we do not fall. Not today. The fighters cheered, but their cheers were not loud with arrogance. They were sharp like knives. These were not soldiers marching for glory. These were survivors, and survival had made them dangerous. The bunker walls shook as another alien blast struck above. Dust rained down from the ceiling. A young engineer ran forward, placing a map on the table. They're targeting communication towers. They want us blind and cut off. The soldier nodded. His mind was already racing. Then we make our own signals. Patch together what you can. Even whispers are enough. We don't need their machines. We'll build our own. Another fighter, older, scarred like him, leaned forward. What about weapons? They're shields. Nothing breaks them. The soldier's eyes narrowed. He reached into a box and pulled out a small device, glowing faintly. We've stolen pieces of their technology before. We've studied them, broken them down, rebuilt them. These devices can cut into their shields, not for long, only seconds. But sometimes seconds are all we need. The room fell silent, the weight of hope heavy in the air. Meanwhile, above Earth, alien soldiers patrolled the orbit. Their commanders laughed at human attempts to fight back. To them, humans were insects scrambling on the ground. Yet reports began to trouble them. A patrol ship destroyed over the Atlantic, an outpost ambushed in the mountains, an energy core stolen from a supply craft. Whispers spread among the alien ranks. Humans are fighting back. The alien king dismissed the reports at first, believing them small acts of desperation. But deep down his pride began to burn hotter. He had sworn to crush Earth quickly, to make the humans bow. Instead, resistance was spreading like fire through dry grass. Back on Earth, the soldier stood before his fighters again. This time, he did not speak of war. He spoke of survival. We are not just fighting for land. We are fighting for children hiding in basements, for mothers carrying food through broken streets, for fathers who refuse to give up even when the skies fall. We are fighting for every heartbeat that still dares to live. One young fighter raised her hand. Her voice was shaky. Do you think we can really win? The soldier looked at her, his eyes calm. Winning is not just about destroying them. Winning is living when they want us dead. Winning is showing them that humans will never bow. Every day we survive every battle we fight, and that is victory. His words lit a fire in the room. They were not just waiting for death anymore. They were ready to write their own fate. That night, the resistance launched its first true strike. Small groups moved through ruined cities and hidden tunnels. Explosives built from stolen alien cores lit up the skies. One alien patrol ship was torn in half, falling into the sea. Another had its engines hacked, crashing into the desert. The aliens began to notice. For every human they killed, two more seemed to rise. For every city they burned, resistance found another shadow to hide in. The alien king received the reports with cold fury. He slammed his fist against the table in his command ship. Insects, he spat. They dare to resist me? I will crush their leaders. I will burn their shelters. I will rip the hope from their hands, but even as he spoke, his mind returned to one thought. The child. His grandson, half human, half alien. Could the resistance be fighting harder because of that child? Could whispers of the boy's existence be spreading already? The king's rage grew heavier, and with it his obsession. Deep underground in the bunker, the soldier sat alone for a moment. He stared at the broken earth on his maps, at the glowing alien ships above. His hand rested on a locket. Inside it was a small picture of the princess. His heart ached, but his resolve hardened. For her, for him, for all of us. The war drums had begun, but the rhythm of resistance was rising. Humans would not kneel. Not now, not ever. Far from the alien king's palace, hidden in the quiet edges of the empire, the princess's child grew. He was kept safe in the house of a loyal servant, a woman who risked her life every day to protect him. To most who saw him, he looked like any other child. But those who looked closer knew he was different. His skin carried a glow, not silver like the aliens, not pale like humans, but something between. His eyes held strange colors that shifted in the light. When he laughed, the sound seemed to warm the air. When he cried, the earth itself seemed to tremble. By the time he could walk, whispers spread among the villagers. They said the boy was touched by the stars. They said he was chosen. Some called him a miracle. Others feared him as an omen. The servant, though afraid, loved him deeply. She would tell him stories every night. Stories of heroes who stood against darkness, stories of bridges built between enemies. And though he was only a child, He listened with strange focus as if he already understood. The princess, still trapped in her father's palace, lived each day with her heart torn. She did not know where her child was, only that he was alive. Every whisper of rebellion, every rumor of resistance gave her hope. She believed the child carried something powerful, something the king could not see, but the king had not forgotten. His spies searched across the empire. He had heard faint rumors of a boy who did not look like others, a boy with eyes of fire and water. Each report deepened his fury. The king feared no army, no weapon, but this child filled him with dread. A child born of two worlds could one day unite them, and if that happened, the king's rule would end. Find him, the king ordered his hunters. Bring him to me, dead if you must. As the child grew older, strange things began to happen around him. Once, when another child tried to strike him, the boy's skin flashed with light and the attacker was thrown back as if struck by unseen hands. Another time, when he was lost in the woods, the trees themselves seemed to bend and guide him home. The servant grew frightened. You must hide your power, she told him. If others see, they will take you away. The boy looked at her with wide, curious eyes. Why am I different? She hesitated. Then with a heavy heart she answered, because you are both. You are human, and you are alien. You belong to two worlds. The boy thought for a long time before asking, then maybe I can make them friends. The servant's eyes filled with tears. He was too young to know how heavy those words were. But deep inside she wondered if he was right. Meanwhile on Earth, the human soldier continued to fight. Every battle, every act of resistance was another message to the aliens. Humans would not surrender. Yet in his quiet moments, his heart always returned to the memory of the princess and the child he had never seen. He did not know if the boy lived. He did not know if their love had survived, but he believed. He had to. One night, under a silver sky, the child dreamed. He saw fire and war, cities burning and ships falling from the stars. But he also saw faces. His mother, a woman with tears in her eyes. His father, a soldier standing tall, and himself, older, standing between two armies with hands raised. When he woke, his heart pounded. He could not explain the dream, but he felt it was real. He felt it was his destiny. Back in the palace, the princess stood before her father once more. The king's war had not ended quickly. Humans had resisted harder than he expected. For every city burned, more fighters rose. The war dragged on, and whispers of the child grew louder. The princess finally spoke, her voice steady though her hands shook. Father, you cannot win this war. You fight against more than humans. You fight against destiny itself. The king's eyes blazed. You speak of that child. She met his gaze, unflinching. Yes, he will grow stronger than you, stronger than me, stronger than all of us, and when he comes, he will end this war. The king struck his staff against the floor, the sound like thunder. Then I will find him before he grows. I will crush him with my own hands. But even as he spoke, deep in his heart, he feared those words. He feared the prophecy in her voice. The child, hidden far away, sat quietly as the servant sang him to sleep. His small hand glowed faintly with light he could not control. His eyes closed, but his dreams burned brighter than ever. He was not just a child. He was the child of two worlds, and soon both worlds would need him. The war between humans and aliens had stretched across the stars. Earth's cities burned, but the people refused to bow. The alien fleet struck with fire, but the resistance struck back with courage. Every battle fed the king's rage, and every small victory kept hope alive among humans. But now the war was reaching its end. The king had grown obsessed. His soldiers had searched endlessly, and at last they had found him, the child of two worlds. The boy was older now, strong and strange, his powers impossible to hide. When the hunters came, he stood between them and the servant who had raised him. His hands glowed with light, and the soldiers who tried to seize him were thrown back, their weapons shattered. The boy's secret was no longer a secret. Word reached the palace. The king's fury shook the walls. Bring him to me. Alive, he commanded. I will end this with my own hands. The princess was dragged to the throne room, her wrists bound, her face pale but proud. She already knew what had happened. Her child was no longer hidden. Her father would use the war itself to destroy him. Father, she said softly, please, do not do this. He is not your enemy. He is your blood, but the king's eyes burned. He is not my blood. He is poison. a bridge between us and the vermin who dare resist me. If he lives, I lose everything. No throne, no legacy, nothing. The princess lifted her chin. If he dies, you lose more. You lose your soul. For the first time, the king's voice shook with something beyond rage, fear. Then let the galaxy watch. I will kill the boy. I will kill the soldier, and I will burn the humans until no whisper of them remains. The day came when both sides met in one final battle. Above Earth, the sky filled with fire. Alien warships clashed with human fighters. Explosions lit the heavens like storms. In the middle of it all, the king's command ship descended. He wanted no generals, no messengers. He wanted to face his enemies himself. On the ground below, the resistance gathered. At their front stood the scarred soldier, his weapon ready. By his side stood the princess, freed by those who still believed in her. And between them stood the boy, no longer hidden, no longer afraid. The boy's small frame glowed with strange light. His eyes, bright with both human warmth and alien fire, looked not at the armies but at the king himself. The king emerged from his ship, towering and furious. His armor gleamed, his staff burned with power. The armies on both sides fell silent, watching. He pointed his staff at the boy. You will not live another day. The soldier stepped forward, standing in front of his son. You will not touch him. The princess moved beside them. You have already lost, father. Not to war. To fear, the king roared, striking the ground. The earth shook. I fear nothing. The boy's voice, soft but steady, broke through the silence. Yes, you do. You fear me. You fear what I am. You fear that I can end this war. The king's hand trembled on his staff. For the first time, he looked at the boy not as an enemy, but as something he could not control. The armies stirred, waiting for the clash. Humans raised their weapons. Aliens tightened their grips. The air was heavy with a choice no one else could make. The boy took a step forward, past his parents, past the line of soldiers. His glow grew brighter, filling the battlefield. He raised his hands. Stop! The word shook the ground. Weapons lowered without command. The engines of ships fell silent. Both armies froze, not by fear, but by something deeper. Something inside them listened to the boy. He looked at the humans. You fight to live. He looked at the aliens. You fight because you are afraid. Then he turned to the king. But if you destroy us all, there will be nothing left for either world. The king growled, fighting against the strange power that held the armies still. You are just a child. You cannot rule me. The boy's light grew brighter. I do not want to rule. I want peace. The words cut through the battlefield sharper than any blade. Soldiers on both sides lowered their eyes, ashamed of the blood on their hands. Even the generals felt their rage weaken. The king raised his staff one last time, but his hand shook violently. He could not strike. He could not deny the truth glowing before him. His throne, his power, his pride, all of it felt small compared to this child. The princess stepped forward. Father, this is the choice. War or peace? Destruction or life? Which will you choose? The king's eyes blazed, torn between hate and fear, pride and truth. For a long moment, no one moved. And then, with a cry that shook the sky, the king dropped his staff. It shattered on the ground. His knees struck the earth. He covered his face, not in defeat of battle, but in defeat of himself. The war was over. The boy's glow faded. The soldiers stepped back, human and alien alike. For the first time in memory, the battlefield was silent. No guns, no screams. Only the sound of breathing, tired, heavy, but alive. The soldier placed his hand on his son's shoulder. The princess knelt, holding him close. The child of two worlds had chosen not to destroy, but to unite. And in that moment, the future began.